If given a chance to go back and interview your younger self, would you actually hire that young boy? If yes, why? If no, why not? You lost your father when you were a 3-month-old baby. From losing your father as a 3-month-old baby to building India's most respected, reputed HR brand, what's the one change in mindset, one shift in mindset that changed literally everything for you?
There's so much knowledge is truly democratic now. There are enough number of freeware in the net which you can take and study. You know, there are free AI tools which are available here. If you're a person who have a flow, you will just follow that. It may not be part of your subject, may not be part of your curriculum, but you know that there is some big transition, a tectonic change happening around you. So if you're a person, if you're an MBA, fresh MBA who are coming in, I would not look at your marks. I would look, you need to have passed and all that stuff. But at the same time, I would look at what's the level of intellectual flow that you have and what rituals, what practices you have built, which builds a certain, base for yourself. Keep on increasing, keeping on investing in building consciousness in you. The consciousness will be your greatest asset. Okay, whether you are 21, whether you are 65 like me, or whether it's you're 87 like GV, because your founder's birthday last week actually. So 87, you exist based on your consciousness. Visayuru pandinai pol ullam vendiya padichellum udal ketten nasayaru manam ketten. What it means is,
ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I am so honored to be in conversation with the one and only Mr. Ma Foi Pandiarajan sir, Indian Ma Foi Pandiarajan sir, Indian businessman and politician. Sir, thank you very much, and thank you for agreeing to talk with all of us today.
Thank you.
Well, you might have interviewed thousands and thousands of candidates in your HR career. If given a chance to go back and interview your younger self, would you actually hire that young boy? If yes, why? If no, why not?
Okay. Thanks, Sapna, for that question. Interviewing my younger self, my younger self, if I were to put as someone like you out there, where you are just joined the campus or looking forward to a job or whatever. You see, the first job I was interviewed for was for Unilever. At that time, I was passing out of a place called XLRI. XLRI is one of the premier MBA schools in the country, and I actually didn't get selected, though I was the topper in XLRI. So it was a very major bruise to my ego at that point in time. And actually, two of my classmates who were very lowly rated in the campus, they got the job in that time. And it was very tough for me to assimilate, because very rarely in those days, engineers used to go for the HR. Just speaking to some of your colleagues here, when I asked them how many of you have taken HR as a subject, very few of them in the first year. And in those days, XLRI was the premier institute, and for HR, number one in the country. But still, when I faced rejection, in my view, at that point in time, it was deeply hurtful. Okay, now if I were to rethink, if I were to speak to my younger self, what was I like at that point in time? The kind of person I must have been at that time would have been very raw at one level, from a village, not a great deal of comfort with English, going to a North India first time, Jamshedpur I studied in, and like a whole lot of people who were kind of much better than you in terms of communication. All that I was carrying was a lot of analytical skills. Mathematics I was very strong in. Engineering gave me a set of analytical skills and all that. But really the social skills wise, I must have been very, very low. And companies in those days, especially Unilever, ITC, they were the day one companies at that time. They were all looking for more of social skills and your ability to interact, rather than your conceptual or analytical skills. One of the things I'd like to, if I were to reflect back, I were to think and guide my youngsters here is like, don't get too enamored by the name of the company. I actually went and joined a company, which is a multinational, Indian Oxygen Limited, which is then became British Oxygen and all that. But it's not as highly rated as the companies like Unilever or ITC or ICI in those days. I mean, one of the learnings, which if I were to impart my younger self is, don't get too hung up with what kind of a company selects you. Okay, your career is what you would make of. Much later, within 6 years of working for a company, I realized that I was more meant to be an entrepreneur, where I started my own company called Ma Foi, which became the first 1,000 crore company in the HR industry. It became the first company to raise venture capital, first company to be in the entire range of the HR value chain, the first company to cross 70,000 employees in the country. And I was seen to be a HR pioneer. Okay, I'm sure if I were to have joined a multinational like a Unilever at that point in time, I might have been selling soaps and detergents somewhere around the length and breadth of this country. And I would have probably retired as one head of HR in a company like Unilever. I think destiny crafts where you will be, where you will eventually flower forth. Don't ever force fit with what you think that company is like, what you think they want out of you. Be yourself is what I would advise my younger self. I think I've done well for myself. At some point in time, I discovered, the strong urge I had to go into public life, went into becoming an MLA, went into becoming a minister, became the GST Council one of the first members from Tamil Nadu, crafted 5 legislations linked to the GST at that point in time. To me, life has been very fulfilling. So if I were to go back to my younger self and by proxy speak to this group of people, I would only say value yourself, value whatever skills, perspectives you hold of yourself, and then choose the nature of company that you wish to work for. Coming from the portals of a VIT, where you have choices, I think you should learn to respect what your basic orientations are, basic interests are. I used to have another classmate of mine in engineering called Gnanathesigan. Okay, he became, and both of us wrote IAS. In those days, there was a passion to write IAS and all that. And both of us wrote IAS exam. I failed. He passed. Okay, and at some point in time, I was a minister and he was a chief secretary of Tamil Nadu at that point in time. Life, and the first 9 years he got transferred some 12 times because he was a very rigid or firm IAS officer with a lot of convictions, and he used to get tossed around like hell while I was running my own company with whatever autonomy it has to. So what life holds for you, there are many factors beyond you which will shape your stuff. All that is within you is trust your own background, trust your own capability, allow yourself to blossom in ways unique to yourself. That's all that I would say. Go on, ma'am. Yeah.
Fantastic, sir. So would you hire the younger self?
Right now in the company that I run, CLHR, which is one of probably the fastest growing HR company in this country, we are already 2,250 crores and we have almost 51,000 people working for us. In a company like this, a youngster of that kind of a fire, at the same time, not hugely skilled from a social skills and the sophistication which today's MBAs are expected to carry, I would hire him. I would hire him more as a person who would grow one of the businesses, maybe the business called ProSculpt. We have a business which works with youngsters like you. It's a campus upskilling business. And that business, in fact, my colleague Swaminathan runs it. In fact, I'd like him to be introduced to all of you. He, in fact, single-handedly finds placement for about 1,000 campus recruits every year. If your normal salary would be, say, 50,000 rupees per month, you sign up with him, he will upskill you and find a job for you at 1 lakh a month. That's the kind of service we offer. I would have hired this younger self of mine in a role like that. Thank you. Yeah, go on.
Fantastic, sir. Thank you very much. And you lost your father when you were a 3-month-old baby. From losing your father as a 3-month-old baby to building India's most respected, reputed HR brand. What's the one change in mindset, one shift in mindset that changed literally everything for you?
I think it's the quality of support I receive from my family. If I were to single, whether it's my wife later, who's been my co-promoter, or from my primary system. I'm from a village called Vilampatti near Sivakasi. I'm sharing this with you because often you don't realize the power of family support in whatever you do. Often we tend to, many youngsters, I see, discount the role of family in your own career building. Okay, I would personally say, okay, I didn't have my father, but my grandfather, grandmother, who are not very hugely educated, 3rd standard, 4th standard, they were studying. But they could give me a sense of confidence, which I carry even till date, through the rough and tumble of politics, through the rough and tumble of stock market, whatever. I think the basic foundation of my identity got crafted in the first 10 years of my life, whether it's my primary system, which were running small, tiny sector match industries or fireworks or whatever. I think the kind of casting that it does to me, did to me, is phenomenal. And I'm very sure each of you have that. Often unrecognized contributors to the shaping of your personality. I would say it's my family which has been the single most contributor. I used to have a large joint family, many children floating around. In a joint family setting often, you actually find a lot of you in a setting like that, okay? And there is strong social support which is there for you. Your village supports you, your friends. Like when I started the company, Ma Foi, we had 276 investors. Many of them had studied elementary school with me. Many of them were working as supervisors in the fireworks. And for all their life savings would have been 3,000 rupees. They gave that to me as equity. We called ourselves a crowdsourced organization. And we gave back the 3,000, 10 times, 14 times, we returned that to them. But in a crowd like this, where Tamil Nadu especially, where share investing as a culture is anathema, even to very well endowed families. to have people who are unlettered, who are not very well off, put in money. I could bring 276 investors into the stock market, so to speak, at that time. And, people had the confidence at the end of it that we can put money into a company, gain returns, and move on. In fact, one of the things I tell the youngsters wherever I go to a MBA school or a BCom or BSc or wherever we go to is today in these age of zerodas and grows, where even with hardly 1,000 rupees you can play the stock market with zero commissions, brokerage, just do that play. You may lose some, you may win some, but at the end of it, you will know about companies. And you could become creator of companies. Today, I know how many of you know that over 1,000 companies are listed in the small and medium exchange, NSE, BSC. Okay, and you go to a place called Gujarat, a place called Rajkot. Rajkot has almost 90% of the people there are investors. Today, it's an era where each of you can be creators of companies. And the world gives you so much. There's a book I used to read where, it's a book which talks about the new age, what is coming, where you have a weighing scale. One side, if you keep money, another side, you keep ideas. For a long time in the history of India, in the history of the world, the scale which had ideas was higher and the money was lower. What's shifting gears now is that the scale with ideas is going down, money is going up, which would mean that the people with money are chasing people with ideas and management capability. Okay, if you have that, today it's the era of entrepreneurship where the society supports you with money. Public funds await you. We created Chennai Angels. One of us co-created, a few of us co-created Chennai Angels. There's an angel network which chases people with ideas from the campuses. VIT has one of the incubators. And I think all of it really points to the age of entrepreneurship. It's an age of ideas, the age of co-creation. That's what I would like to say. Yeah.
Beautiful, sir. Now that you said it's the age of ideas, I just want to understand, what is the biggest skill gap you observe in MBA graduates today?
I think more than skill gap, I think there's a perspective gap. The perspective gap is that, you need to be this, wearing a suit, wearing a smile, having a drink in your hand. These are the kind of necessary skills and competencies. Is a mistaken assumption, firstly. I think there are still companies which look for basics. There are still a huge lot of entrepreneurs out there looking for people with a burning fire in them to create something of your own. But I would see the greatest strength I would see of any MBA student is, are you having a flow of a certain kind? Some people you would say just drift away their time. Some people who always are conscious, the consciousness is something which I would look for. Consciousness means you're able to flow within yourself. Flow a lot easier with one another. Flow in terms of whatever you have as a target, you're able to just, even if somebody says AI in HR, AI in marketing, AI in finance, there's so much knowledge is truly democratic now. There are enough number of freeware in the net which you can take and study. There are free AI tools which are available here. If you're a person who have a flow, you will just follow that. It may not be part of your subject, may not be part of your curriculum, but you know that there is some big transition, a tectonic change happening around you. Do you have the intellectual curiosity? Do you have the ideational fluency to just kind of take it and run? Okay, that's what I would see very, very critical in a young MBA. Now, many of my friends, like the guy who started Bharat Matrimony, he couldn't even speak English properly. But today his personal net worth is at least $2 billion.
Okay. He started a company when he was hardly 28, 29 or whatever. There are many people, the Zerodha chief, he's not particularly great on Queen's English. Okay. But he had an idea. Power of the idea persists. His personal net worth today is at least 28,000 crores. Okay, so there are many people who, in my view, have pursued their dream with confidence, with a certain intellectual flow, which is being facilitated by anything. I always say this in a campus. Things which are very simple to learn, like a Sudarshan Kriya, by art of living. There are many people who are out here who would teach you that. Just a 20 minutes routine a day. You will see the kind of consciousness which you build. Your breath determines your intellect in many ways. I believe that. Okay, I can stand personal testimony to that. Zero expense. There are people who will teach to you free of cost. Okay, most of you are not conscious of your breath. Most of you. And this is the time when you chisel every part of your career. Okay, and your greatest ally is your breathing. And very, very few of you even realize that it has a certain value. Okay, things like yoga, meditation sound very foreign to many of the youth of today. Okay, little realizing it's a grand equalizer. You need nothing today in the world of internet to kind of learn any of these. But you get distracted into so much which is there, the digital toxic stuff which is coming now. So if you're a person, if you are, an MBA, fresh MBA who are coming in, I would not look at your marks. I would look, you need to have passed and all that stuff. But at the same time, I would look at what's the level of intellectual flow that you have and what rituals, what practices you have built, which builds a certain, base for yourself. I saw a college in Mumbai, I was addressing it last week. They're calling it Cash College, okay, knowledge, attitude, skills, and habits, which are the foundations of a professional as per them. There's one of the best colleges, Dr. Shahani Group. I was quite impressed the way they've captured whatever is essential for the youngsters who come into the campus. In my view, to respond to your question, more than the skill gap, I think there's a gap of consciousness which I would like students to look at. Skills can be added. I remember the famous saying of CEO Jack Welch. He used to always say, recruit for attitude, train for skills. In fact, they always used to find people who have an attitude which is positive, but gaps in skills get made up by the company. That was always their focus. So build your attitude, build your perspectives. Don't be too negative with the skills you have, and don't be, so yearning for the skills you don't have. Okay, so that's what I would say. Often we tend to underestimate our own backgrounds, especially people from poorer backgrounds, poor village background. You tend to undervalue, and there are many things which conspire to strengthen this mindset of undervaluing. Learn the background of people. I'm happy that VIT is arranging this interface with many people here. Learn the background of people in all its pristine rawness. Okay, don't get too hung up about, this is all what is necessary, and this is not necessary. Question your assumptions. Thank you.
Fantastic, sir. You rightly talked about AI, which brings me to my next question. We know that artificial intelligence is reshaping human resource, but according to you, if there's a skill or a role or a job in HR that can never be replaced by artificial intelligence, what would that be?
See, firstly, I think it's a mistaken name called artificial intelligence. I really think it's actually AI standing for augmented intelligence. Okay, it actually augments our natural intelligence. I don't think this thing of jobs are threatened and stuff like that, I don't belong to that brigade at all. The nature of jobs is getting transformed. In fact, the number of jobs actually is increasing. The number of new jobs which AI is creating is phenomenally high. You need to have attitude of a child to understand and master AI. Okay, whether it is you do it through ChatGPT, whether you do it through cloud, or whether you do it through any of the other tools that you have. There are many of them are freewares. Okay, don't get too worried. But in terms of prompt engineering, understanding the art of prompting, you will only need to learn and grow. Okay, so there is nothing which is, another course you take and some other subject you need to study, nothing like that. Understand the basics of AI and see how you can deploy it in your own job. So to question what is that job which will never be threatened by AI, I'm saying no job will get threatened by AI. But with the nature of jobs being changing, like coding, for instance, universally it's accepted that coding will not be the same. If you're able to kind of program without the knowledge of programming, you can always give prompts to the AI tools. There are tools which can phenomenally enhance the productivity of the coders. Okay, now it's up to the coder to become replaceable or to move to a level where he becomes a stronger prompt engineer. Prompt engineer is a role which is not there 5 years ago. Now there are prompt engineers, and the prompt engineers need not be engineers. You are engineering something, but you don't have to be an engineer. I think the magic of AI, and keep in mind there are, in a year, last year, for instance, FY25, the year which is ending now, the world has plowed in close to $1 trillion in the AI-related R&D. Okay, the big seven in US, the big seven starting from NVIDIA down to your Facebook parent company, all of them have been plowing hell of a lot of money. Okay, now China, on the other hand, has been investing dollars, but they managed to create low-cost AI base, the DeepSeek kind of AI stuff that they've created. India is the third largest economy investing in AI. How many of you are aware? I have no idea. Government has been plowing in a lot of funds. Individual enterprises have been plowing in funds. So what will all this create? Is there a large bubble where everybody goes after? One day the bubble is pricked and the air goes off. That's a question which is also being asked by people. So I would not say anybody, look, I go to engineering colleges, I go to MBA colleges. There is a wave against the traditional disciplines of engineering. Okay, don't do any longer civil engineering, EEE, ECE. All of you go for AI, all of you go for this. That kind of a herd mentality, please take it away from you. Learn AI as augmented intelligence, not AI as artificial intelligence, which will replace natural intelligence. That's one point I'd like to say. Be careful. In fact, I was very worried when this young lady who was hosting me here told me that in the first year, hardly anybody took HR. HR has become a mother subject currently. HR industry currently is 210,000 crore in this country. Okay, that whoever has given you this vision, influenced your vision, that HR, you don't get good jobs. It's a terrible idea, to actually go for the other 4 disciplines, marketing, finance, operations, and what more they mentioned, analytics or whatever they've brought as a separate discipline. It's a big mistake in my view. I think disciplines like HR, which is transforming to high-tech, high-touch. Okay, you can't have high-tech without high-touch. And people who have the ability to understand human processes, sense what's happening right in the structure, systems, and processes will be eternally needed in organizations. More so in the AI era. than the previous era. That's my honest view. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. You built Ma Foi, saw success, sold it. You built another company, saw success, and still seeing it. But tell me, what keeps an entrepreneur always hungry even after seeing success after success after success?
Yeah, I think there's a thrill in building an organization
Right.
into an institution. The difference between what an organization is, what an institution is. VIT is an institution. I kept asking this 87-year-old man who was sitting next to me, GV, to kind of what keeps him going. Okay. I'm much younger to him. I'm one generation younger to him. But I'm sure you are 2 generations younger to me. You are in the early 20s or late teens. Okay. So, like, he's actually 87. Okay. This institution today, starting with Vellore, coming to Chennai, going to Andhra, going to MP, or, building now first steps of Mauritius, overseas going, or whatever. See, institutions have a way of holding your attention, holding, your strength. To see the youngsters, right now there are 1 lakh students who are sitting around in VIT. The alumni is almost 2 lakhs, was spread across the world. To me, I think building an institution, whether it's Ma Foi or whether it's, in fact, Ma Foi, though we've sold the business, we retain the brand. So to that extent, Ma Foi is still very much part of CLHR. And CLHR, is growing at 42% per annum. We are 2,250 crores this year. We will be a 10,000 crore company within the next 3 years. We are getting listed. Our brand is getting established. And more importantly, we've created now over 5 lakh carriers. There are 5 lakh people in this country who hold the chapa that I've been placed by Ma Foi or CLHR. So that's to me a big thrill. And to be in every part of the HR tech value chain, we hire more tech people than HR people. Again, ideally a blend of HR and tech is what we hire. We have 52,000 people working currently in the organization. To me, all this is exciting. Yeah, I sold the business last time, retained the brand. This time I'm going for the public issue where I continue to hold the 51% stake in the company. The legacy, what I leave behind, like I'm sure exactly what GV sir has, the legacy of VIT. For me, the legacy of, here is a guy who has found carriers maybe for 1 million people. Okay, that to me would be my lasting legacy. Okay, and to me, an institution offers you the vehicle to live your dream. Okay, and whether it's this transitions notwithstanding, you take a venture capital, you take angel investment, you take public funds through a public issue. All these are to me instruments to live your dream. And that is what I would like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. In a world, in a setup where skills get outdated in as short as 18 months, what would you like to tell to our MBA graduates who want to stay relevant?
A good question. See, there is something called like half-life theory in physics. Half-life theory means that by the time something comes out to fruition, half of its relevance goes away. It's applicable to obsolescence of curriculum, obsolescence of people. I think it's applicable all over. So always be conscious. See, whether it's Sudarshan Kriya giving you consciousness or whether it's silent meditation or silent contemplation which gives you consciousness. Keep on increasing, keeping on investing in building consciousness in you. That consciousness will be your greatest asset. Okay, whether you are 21, whether you are 65 like me, or whether it's you're 87 like GV, because your founder's birthday last week, actually. So 87, you exist based on your consciousness. And everyone is born with 100% consciousness. The child is born with 100% consciousness. Socialization in a way takes away gradually your consciousness. How many of you are conscious of your breath? How many of you are even conscious that you can build your spiritual strength? When I say spiritual, it's not religious. I'm talking about real spiritual strength you build unto yourself. Okay. All of you can build a family. All of you can build a company. All of you can co-create something along with a whole lot of people. All of you can leave behind a legacy which will be your own, can't be challenged. The entire life is an aspiration towards creating something unique for oneself. Okay. If that consciousness evolves in you, I'm very, very sure all these changes in the outside world, you will be able to navigate with your own self-direction, with your own direction that this is what I'm destined to be, kind of a thing. That map you build early enough in your life. And that map, if you can build, I'm sure many of these external things will be like child's play. I had a grandmother who I said, most of my institutions are named after her. She always used to, when I get out of my village in my cycle, she'll always put one Tiruneeru there and tell one simple mantra. The mantra in her own native Tamil used to sound like, Malapula vandadalam panipola poho. Whatever comes as a mountain will melt away like dew, is what in her own rustic Tamil she used to say. And that to me has been the mantra of my life. Okay. If your basic belief is that whatever you have outside, you'll navigate and melt away like a piece of dew. Okay. Whatever comes and threatens like the mountain of a problem will melt away like dew. Can you instill that in you? Can you allow your mind to instill it unto itself? Okay, allow your mind to rest, be in silence. It will migrate to this natural state of adventure, natural state of self-confidence. That's my wish unto thee. Thank you.
Many students feel pressured to figure out their career early. How important is clarity versus adaptability in the early stages of one's career?
I think it's both as important. Clarity, adaptability are not contrary things, number one. In fact, greater is your clarity, greater will be your adaptability. I don't see a conflict between the two. The question of Trump-like clarity. Trump is one of the most clear people on earth. Okay, he has no doubts about himself. He has no doubts about outside world. Okay, the Trump-like clarity has wrought more havoc in the world than the adaptable versions of many other leaders in the world. That's my view, for instance. Clarity need not always be a strength. Oftentimes, the unclear, honest admission of self-doubt can position you as a very authentic person. You know, I've seen many clear people who are so rigid and were so monstrous that they don't create any positive contribution in the world. Okay. Visayuru Pandinai Pol Ullam Vendiya Padichalum Udal Keten Nasayaru Manam Keten. What it means is, unfortunately for a Tamil, you know, what your US heritage has taken away is your ability to feel through some of this heritage of yours. Okay, so Visayuru Pandinai Pol means like a football, you hit and give it a velocity. It just runs, okay, it just goes where you want that to go. Visayuru Pandinai Pol Ullam Vendiya Padichalum Udal Keten. Whatever my mind wants, my body executes. That kind of zero gap between body, mind, and spirit is what he seeks out of God. Okay, so if you're thinking clarity in that sense, often body doesn't, your mouth doesn't say what your mind wants you to say. Okay, that's one part of clarity. Okay, where Like Vivekanand, when he was in US, for instance, when he went to address the Chicago conference, he was moving around and people were shooting. There was a shooting competition. And he just went there. And people were asking, what is this half-naked fakir with was wearing a saffron robe doing out there in the streets of Chicago? And he went there and they gave him the pistol. He just shot and all 10, 10, 10. And he won the race. So people asked him, you never held a pistol on your hand. He said, boss, every part of life is where your body, mind, and spirit gets aligned in one target. And all that I did was that, and I won. Okay. He taught a very simple lesson to the Americans at that time. Okay. To me, the question or the dichotomy that you see in clarity, adaptability is like you need to be clear in order to be conscious of what you need to adapt to. Okay, so that clarity to me is nothing but an alignment between the body, mind, and spirit. Often you're not conscious that there is something called spirit which moves you. Okay, to me, as a student, I would first say, are there parts of my heritage which I've lost touch with? Okay, in the way I've been brought up, in the way I've moved on, there are so many treasures which are yours for 5,000 years, if you're a Tamilian. If you're an Indian, there are some parts of our culture which are more than 10,000 years. Okay, those treasures rediscover. Your clarity will emerge by itself. Adaptability is an outcome of clarity. Adaptability is not something which is conflicting with clarity. Often people who think or come through as absolute clarity, they are having a facade of clarity. Where deep within, they are in a mess. To hide that, there's a facade of clarity which is being given. And please read a lot more of your own heritage. You would probably grow a lot more to deal with the changing vagaries of life with adaptability as your weapon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.